And now here's part 2 of our episode.
So Alyx, why is that your standout track from the album?
Honestly, that was
It's so good.
It's so good. That's all I have to say. No. Oh my god! Like, I love that we listened to it because I've been listening to it for like the past week over and over again because, and it just brings me right back there. I'm so happy to be talking about this album because it really means so much to me, and that's my standout track for. I don't know. What actually is interesting. Another fact is that Andrew McMahon didn't write that one. His lead guitarist did. I can't say the guitarist's name, which I found interesting. I mean, there's so many good songs from the album, but I honestly just like it rocks so hard. Like it's just everything about it is like everything I love about his music, and I don't know. I don't have words. I just love it. I just really love it. I love that song. It's so catchy.
I'm gonna give you 8,000 points for part of your reasoning being that you don't have words, because that is a reason enough. Yeah,
it is really good. Like I can't even say it's like it's just
no,
like
I appreciate that. Yeah,
it's so typical. Like he takes like this like metaphor of a hurricane, which like I'm sure when he wrote this at like 20 was like this like really like I don't know like big deep thing, but or I guess
revelatory,
he didn't write it. But like
shit, a storm.
Yeah, but it's also just like so like of course it's just so evocative. Like a hurricane is like it is such a good like theme for a song, and like I don't know, it's just so good. I just love it.
It also has what I consider a very classic sort of emo melodic line. Is it don't stay? You know, like I feel like whatever that musically, you know, we're not a music theory podcast, but whatever that.
Yes, totally.
That is so like it is such a familiar sort of path, a musical path in my head that you can. I'm sure like Good Charlotte, I'm sure had a song that like had a line like that, and
those
and a particular
hooks are like so good, and they are like so like emblematic of the time. It's like
and the voice. He's got the voice. It's that what do you even call it? It's like almost like a whine. It's like it's but like it was so that was such the voice of emo music, I feel, and you can see that it's sort of. It feels like a descendant of, you know, the Ramones and Mick Jagger and like all those same rock guys. You know, like I think there's an evolutionary link there. Maybe I don't know. Is that a hot take? Maybe that's not a hot take.
I don't know. I definitely think they all sort of. It didn't really matter the voice, you know. Like it's just you like had a lot to say through his music, and it's like all those frontmen of those bands. I feel like at that time, like I don't know. Like I'd have to read. Was it purposeful that they weren't like always?
There's got to be something. Somebody on Pitchfork or somebody's written a dissertation about this. I know.
Yeah.
He got though. It's funny we should talk about the voice though, because I feel like he like some of the criticism of there were two main criticisms I saw of this album. One being its length. Which I'm kind of like, I don't know. We've had albums on here that
I can take or leave that criticism because it's sort of it's the album that is there.
And it feels like prescriptive feedback, right? It's sort of like, well, what you should have done is this, and it's like, okay, well, cool. Are they going to go and fix the album for you? No, they're not. But
thanks.
But the other thing is the voice. Like some people we're critical of his voice, and I'm kind of like, I don't understand why that's the case. Maybe I wonder. His voice sounds to me, again, and this is not a negative comment. It sounds to me like a lot of other voices of this time period of this genre. But I also do remember around this time period, people started singing like that. And I don't know how to describe it again. I'm not a voice and speech guy, though I do know someone who is. But the Like what is it? What is it? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tyler. What is
this is husband that he's referring to, Alex, just so you know.
Okay, yeah.
That's the voice. Hi, Matthew.
Get him in here.
What is it about his voice? Does it sound different to you, or does it just sound like cool and works with the music?
I think it works with the music and it sounds cool. And I think at the time he was like young at the time. I think a lot of the bands like of this time, they were young. Like I think which a lot of bands are, you know, when they start and they get big. And I think throughout like his musical projects, I feel like his voice has evolved and has gotten, I think, a little better. And so he, you know, but this was I think his first major like label album, and
Yeah.
like, and I think that I just don't think it was, he was probably like 20 or something. And I just think that was the style too. I think it was just like, I don't know.
Across gender too. I would even put some of that to Hayley Williams and Avril. Like they had definitely that kind of sneer, that kind of like whatever that twinge is in it. Like it was very.
But Hayley Williams is like a really
she's
good
incredible.
singer. Yeah. Like I think that there is a level, like, I don't know. I wouldn't categorize at this time Andrew McMahon as like a vocalist, but he's certainly like, but
just so everyone's clear, this is we're a pro Hayley Williams podcast, and we're going to give her her due. We're going to give her flowers where they are due.
Yes, no, I know.
She's unreal, by the way. I was also listening to a little Paramore, and like I just went down that path when we started listening to this, and she's so good. I know it's like that. This is a very common opinion now, especially now that they're touring again. But she's really good. It's insane.
Yeah, she is. I know. No, she's great. Yeah.
So talented. And then obviously I'm back on Olivia Rodrigo, but there's definitely some connective tissue there.
I know. I think that's interesting, actually, because that you say Olivia Rodrigo, just to side quest really quick, because like she is like taking all that early 2000s, like early aughts, like style, and I wonder, do you think that's going to happen with like I don't know, is this something corporate sort of band gonna come out, like, or I don't know, a boy band gonna come out again, like, because fashion's cyclical every 20 years, like Olivia Rodrigo is like taking that. I don't know what that is. I just think it's. I feel like the kids are very of the early 2000s these days, and I don't know. I wonder if how the popularity of the bands from back then are gonna.
I think the femmes are, for sure. I think I think it's like we don't have right now is another Andrew McMahon figure. I think in the scene, maybe on like a global pop level, you have like an Ed Sheeran who sort of is maybe like the more pure pop version of an Andrew McMahon type figure.
Yeah, although Ed Sheeran to me strikes me as more of like a Billy Joel of the 21st century in some ways.
John Mayer kind of like
I could see that.
Yeah.
He definitely like is radio friend, like writes for the radio, I think.
Yes.
I don't know if Andrew McMahon writes for the radio in that same way.
Did you listen to Ben Folds and Ben Folds 5?
No.
You didn't.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm wondering. Well, I know that's a band that my Lauren, Ben Folds in general is a person my Lauren and I love, and then Michael, I feel like you have expressed appreciation for Ben Folds 5. They are the closest. I feel like there is like very the sound and the type of music that these two groups were making was there was very, very close, just degrees of separation between what was happening. I think in a good way. Like I think there's just
cool.
They were both doing a lot of the same things very well at the same time. Would you agree with that, Michael?
I would. I think Ben Folds 5 I think there was a bigger gulf between the silly and the earnest in their music. And also, I mean, like there were no guitars in Ben Folds 5. It was just piano, bass, and drums.
Right.
But I feel like
feature.
with something corporate, I feel like the silly and the earnest are more interwoven. Whereas, I mean, because there's the ridiculous songs Ben Folds would come up with where he's like yelling at a bully, which also feels like we have a song from something corporate where there's yelling at a bully, but then there's songs about much more serious subject matter that he gives it that respect. But I mean, both piano based bands, right? In some ways,
I think that's the big thing, right? Is we don't have a piano guy in the scene right now. We don't have a Ben Folds we don't have an Elton John right now, do we?
I don't think so.
There might be a space in the scene for a new sort of Elton John type musician out there. I could get on board with that. That'd be pretty cool.
You better start learning music theory.
I guess
on that keyboard. Yeah.
I don't think he knew it. I don't think he knew music theory.
He didn't need to. Yeah. He was
no, you're right.
He was sure.
Yeah. All right, Alyx. The next thing you've built a really strong case right here on multiple levels. But what we want to know is we asked you to present us with 4 albums that you considered quote unquote perfect.
Yeah.
So when we asked you that question, what was it that made Leaving Through the Window come to mind, and what sort of standards were you basing that on?
I was basing it off of I wanted an album that I knew really well, and that I connected to, at least in one part of my life, like very strongly to, and one that's just like been there for me for a lot. And I think like there are so many albums I love, like back and front, like it's even more recent albums, but they're albums that I can't really place at a certain time in my life as strongly as I can place something corporate and Leaving Through the Window. And I think that was one of the big reasons why I nominated this record, was because I felt like I have spent so much time with it, and it just, every so often, every few years, I'll go back to it and I'll listen to it and become just as obsessed as I was back then, and like just fell just as much in love, and then be immediately brought back to that place in my life. And I think that for me, the standard for nominating an album for this podcast was an album like that. And in my life, I think there are a few albums like that, but none quite as strong as Leaving Through the Window or like or Everything in Transit. Like those, Andrew McMahon's like that's, when I had to nominate 3, and I could really only think of like 2 that I really felt super strongly about.
That's a good thing, I think. If you had a smaller amount, if you had to expand your net, that's sort of, I think, our hope, right, Michael, in asking for 4, is that we're and then it helps us with curation too, because really, I think that's a really well made point, that it's hard to pick those when you have like albums that you count your life in, which I definitely do. Like there aren't going to be a ton of those, really. Life is too short for there to be a ton of them.
No, you're right. I think that's exactly right. Like it was extremely hard it was hard, and then it was easy, and then it was scary, because I was like, what if you don't pick the album that I like know really well? Because there is such a gap between this album and like other albums that I love. Like
in terms of your like familiarity with
this
it,
is
and
like
your knowledge of it.
Yeah, exactly. And just in terms of how I feel about it, like I just like love this album so much. It's like it's even though I love other albums, like it just, for all the reasons listed, even just the nostalgic factor, like, and just where it takes me when I listen to it, it's like this stands kind of above the rest.
The nostalgia factor is a good point. I feel like when a lot of time, Michael, you can agree or disagree with this, but I feel like a lot of times when we get to this question in the conversation about an album, like a lot of the ideas and emotions that our guests are expressing are our feelings related to nostalgia, but the word nostalgia hasn't come up as much. I feel like because maybe nostalgia gets a bad rap, or it feels.
Like lately, the word nostalgia has been getting a bad rap, and I don't understand why. I mean, I feel like I wish I could remember more of the details of the article, but I feel like I read something about how the origins of the word are in something negative. Like it's not actually, being nostalgic is not something positive, because I guess
etymologically.
And evolutionarily, if that's a word, like it's evolutionally, whatever I said. It's not something to think about the past too much. And to like yearn for the past is not great, but I don't know. I feel like I get nostalgic like once every day, because, and often it's because of a song. It's because of music for me. So
yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
There's a thing about this album and sincerity, because I feel like, and also just emo albums and sincerity. I had an excellent therapist in Chicago. We love Amber. And we love Amber. And she said, one time I said something, talk about peek behind the curtain, am I right?
Shout out Amber.
One time I said something about authenticity, and she was like, millennials are obsessed with authenticity. And I was like, what? And she goes, you guys are just obsessed with it. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And she said, you think that you're not being authentic if you like have to change the way that you speak or something like that, and it's not like that. And obviously this led down all sorts of paths that were really fruitful and interesting, and again, we love Amber. But the thing is that I think we use the word earnest, we use the word sincere. I feel like we often see this thing where people's albums that they present have a sense of like particular truth, particular like a sincerity and authenticity, a reality for the listener that captured them at a particular moment in time, which is kind of what I hear you saying, which it's interesting because I think it deepens richens the experience. Makes it richer. The experience of experiencing an album.
Yeah, sincerity is like the word that I was looking for earlier. That's exactly what I just couldn't find it. That's exactly how I feel about this album. To me, it's so sincere. And when we were talking about like, does it feel like other punk or emo albums of that era? Like I don't know, maybe it's more relatable because I find it more sincere, but I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think they were all kind of sincere. Just to me, this was, I don't know.
Well, and this music was coming out, not to make it about American history, but this music was coming out after 9/11.
No, make it about American history.
Yeah. I mean, it is a post 9/11 album, although if I'm not mistaken, some of the songs on this album were written pre 9/11. But I know we on a previous episode, and I won't mention the artist because we've already covered some problematic artists on this podcast. But we did talk about an album that felt like the death of snark to us, and that was like in the early 2000s. And I'm starting to wonder if a lot of it is like reaction to 9/11, because for a while we weren't allowed to be snarky about anything or sarcastic about anything or make jokes about anything because no one knew what we could laugh about or criticize. And I wonder if that's why there's a hallmark of music in the 2000s feels like there is this sincerity and earnestness that is pervading everything that gets made during this time period.
Right. I really like that.
I think that's definitely part of Leaving Through the Window. And I think it is like there is a sincerity, but there's also like I'll use my fuck here, my fuck you to like the like kind of establishment in a way. Like I guess all youth music like this is kind of like that, but he has like If You See Jordan, which is just so directly like, I don't know, just there's no context to it other than I'm gonna write this hate
right
song.
There.
And to me that was it. I mean, to me that was probably my least favorite single on this album because I didn't like, but maybe it was also just because I was like, I cannot like, I just couldn't relate to it at all, but I don't
there's
know.
something about that song as well that felt more like almost a riff on a standard of the time, like an emo standard at the time, where because there's also Teenage Dirtbag, it's very much their Teenage Dirtbag in my opinion. Which I don't think is a bad thing.
What's interesting is I feel like that song is, I know it was a single when it came out, but to me it feels like the least like the rest of the album. I don't know if that's I don't know. It just feels like a song that's a little out of place because I don't feel like he writes songs like that often. But
when you're saying "fuck you, Jordan," it's like that's in your face. That's aggressive, and the rest of this is kind of like everything we've been saying. There is a forwardness to it. There's a punch to it, but it is gentler in terms of like at its core it's gentler, it's kinder, it's more like I'm feeling these things and I'm sensitive to all these things and I still need to feel rebellious about it.
I think the song actually still kind of, for me, the song does kind of belong on the album because he still like winds around a little bit and waits until the last minute or last like 45 seconds of the song to finally drop the F-bomb, because it's like well, what is he saying, like what's he talking about? But then he finally, I don't know, I love a well-placed F-bomb. Also thinking about songs like this, to go back to the Ben Folds 5 comparison, think about the song for the Dumped. Where there's a direct song which is like F you, but
my sister and I saw Ben Folds. I think she's actually seen him a few more times than I have. I think I've seen him 5 times. He's my most attended artist, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, somebody will need to unseat that someday. Like I've only seen Radiohead twice, but I'm sure I got to get more reps in the post-COVID.
Yeah, that's surprising a little bit. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like I've seen Something Corbin and Jack's Mannequin more than any other band, but I think it's also because you grew up with the bands. I don't know, but I guess you grew up with Radiohead, but maybe they just weren't playing near you that often.
It took me longer to get into Radiohead. Is part of that. Is part of that thing.
Yeah,
it's all in the timing, right? It's all in the timing of like, are you coming to love a band when they're touring all the time and when they're available to you in that way? those bands you end up having a particular relationship with, I think, even if they're just some random ass bands. Oh, and to also what you were saying about the sincerity part of it, I think, maybe you said that this maybe wasn't something that you were as aware of as like the kind of environment that they were in, but we also spoke about Social Distortion last season, and they're another Orange County band, and I think there's something about that region. There's an attitude to that region that is particular, like a sub-region. It's a little fascination of California, right? There's this vast expanse of people that live in Orange County, and there's so many little the whole rockabilly thing with Social Distortion, the emo sort of pop punk thing with Jack's Mannequin and the other bands that were playing at that time. There is a unique energy about that scene.
I wonder if it's because I'd have to go back, but I wonder if it's because it's a kind of a really conservative region, and all of these kids growing up, I don't know, who they grew up with, but I don't know. I feel
it's gotta be.
Yeah.
Probably it's interesting because probably, I don't know if this is a hot take either, but probably growing up in Orange County was probably a lot like it was growing up in St. Louis for me, St. Louis County for me. I feel like there's probably a lot of similarities kind of culturally. And so, that might have been one of the reasons why, one of those larger anthropological reasons that it connected to me and Lauren when we were in middle school and high school.
Well, Alyx, one more question before we head to the board. Very important question. Are you going to go see something corporate in Vegas in October?
I have thought I reopened that question for myself in the past week, but I ultimately am not a festival person, and that is, it's
same.
I'm fortunate enough to have seen them so when they came back for tour, and every time Andrew McMahon tours, I've seen him probably 6 or 7 times throughout my life, and it's always been in these really wonderful small venues, and the types of people who go to those are just the ones who know every word, every song, and so that experience to me is so special, and is irreplaceable. And I don't know if a festival I don't know if it's worth it, especially because I don't know.
That's legit.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I would love to see them again if they. Also, I don't really know if I want to go all the way to Las Vegas, but I think it's a really cool festival, and I'm glad it's happening, and I'm glad they're uniting for it. Crazy lineup. The more I talk about it, I'm gonna start buying tickets right now. But I don't I don't think I'm gonna go. But who knows?
We'll give your case. We'll give your case 9,999 points for when we were young festival being a badass nostalgia bomb for people our age.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to handle it.
It would be a lot. I can just tell. I think it's what the Zoomers would call extra, but maybe even Zoomers don't say that anymore.
You just called yourself out for being a millennial.
I'm a millennial. Yeah, it's okay.
Extra.
I can do it.
Okay, me too.
Well, okay. We could go on. We could go on forever, Alyx, but it's time to visit the board and see how you did, because ultimately music is about winning, right? Isn't that what the market has taught us?
Yeah, I came here to win.
The almighty dollar and the almighty market teaching us to make to the top.
I love capitalism so much.
It's all monopoly, baby. But so let's see how you did building this case and the points on the board. The most recent ones I gave you were 9,999 points for the When We Were Young festival, and it's pure it's pure injection of nostalgia for people our age. I gave you 8,000 points for being so blissed out by listening to Hurricane with us that we asked you to make your case for why you thought it was the standout, and you said you didn't have words, and that was enough. That was enough. Respect. But you also made a great case. I gave you 10,000 points for Pine Grove being emo and me not being aware of that, and you connecting those dots for me, even if it was on the Wikipedia, and that's such a good characterization. Michael, Pine Grove's pretty damn good. I don't know if you listened to them.
Not as much, but I've heard them, and I would echo that sentiment.
Yeah, they're Philly folks, right? Mm-hmm. I think
they're New Jersey, actually.
Jersey, okay.
Montclair, New Jersey. We'll have to digress on a different podcast.
That's fair.
A couple hours about them, yeah.
9,000 points for fan fiction, fan websites, exclamation point. 3,000 points for you felt like you were the first person to ever discover that album, because who doesn't love that experience? To Michael's 60-second. Oh, then you had 800 points for just even mentioning Jack's Mannequin at the Santa Barbara Bowl. And you said you saw Jack's Mannequin there?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look. I know I saw.
Go through your records.
I feel like that happened, but it was a long time ago. I want to say it did, but it would have been like a journey for me because of like I think I would have had to like get out of school early and like go there or something. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. But I do. How many points do I get? I remember a very specific. I was in AP history class and I bought Jack's Mannequin tickets off my phone to go on like a Wednesday night. Like, do I get points for that?
You do. Actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because
like, I was in the front row and it was in my backpack. And it was like, I mean,
you're crazy.
I was crazy for that. It's like a class I fell asleep in like a lot, and because of the time of day, we were teenagers. Like I was tired, and but I had to have those tickets, and so I like bought it off my. And I'm sure Mr. Pilar saw me do that.
Hey,
but
you know what? I'm sure he was glad for you.
No, I don't think he would have been glad if he had known.
Then you definitely get 25,000 points for that. You definitely get 25,000 points for sneakily buying some Jack's Mannequin tickets on your. Was it a flip phone?
God, I can't remember. It probably wasn't. Because
I'm going to imagine that it was a flip phone, even if it wasn't for the time period. Yeah.
I imagine it was a pink Razor, even though it wasn't. But I did have a pink Razor.
That's exactly what was in my head.
Good.
For Michael's 60-second intro, you gave him a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5 stars, an Oscar. That's what you gave him, which is a pretty damn good rating, Michael. And then before that, before we dove in, I gave you 7,000 nuts and 7,000 bolts for getting down to brass tacks and talking about why this album rules so much. And Alyx, I think it does. You made an amazing case.
Yay.
So, Michael, my friend, my collaborator, my sweet man. You've heard Alyx's case. You saw the points that she earned on the board. Tell me, what do you think? Is Leaving Through the Window by Something Corporate a perfect album? Does it go to 11?
I mean, I do think that the last set of points that added 25,000 points for buying the tickets. Well, okay, maybe it did, but I would subtract one letter of recommendation for college applications, because if I were that teacher, that's all I'd be thinking of when I'm writing your letter. So I do think there's a slight detriment, but I gotta say that the first 4 tracks on this album, I was texting Tyler beforehand, like feel like. They could have been a solid EP on their own, just those 4 tracks. I think you made a really strong case, and I think we can say it's perfect. It goes to 11.
Yay! I would have been happy either way, because in my heart this goes to 100, and but I'm glad to hear
that's what we wanted.
It goes to 11. Yeah, and it was so fun to revisit it.
Oh, fire! Ben, what did you do?
He's trying to make brisket for Rosh Hashanah.
Is he?
It's not at our fire. Yeah.
That's hilarious. The brisket's burning.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say he's trying. He's making brisket.
He is making the brisket. Yeah, I bet he makes a damn good brisket.
We'll see. Yeah.
There we go.
And I'm sure it's going to be great.
Perfect. We probably even leave that in. We'll see how it goes. Happy New Year, Ben, by the way. I hope the brisket turns out really, really good. This has been really wonderful. Thank you for bringing this album to the tribunal. Alyx, you're the best.
Oh my God, you guys are the best. This is so fun. The more I listened to it, the happier I was that I picked it, and the more I was just so happy to talk about it. What a fun place, forum to be able to talk about albums you love.
Well, thank you.
And I love this album, and I feel like it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. And, I don't know, like it's fun to revisit after so many years.
I will say that every person I try not to mention to too many people what the albums that we're doing beforehand, before they come out. But I did mention this to my sister, and she flipped, so this was, it's all good. We're keeping it in, by the way. This is definitely.
Oh, good. I'm sorry.
This is part of, baby. This is podcasting, baby. But my sister flipped when she heard that we were doing this one. She said it was Chef's Kiss. and it really is.
She has taste. I have nothing
she does
else
have
to
taste.
say besides that. Yeah, she knows.
This we know. She's got damn good taste.
Yeah, we knew that.
Someday she just might have to make an appearance.
She's gonna have to. What's she gonna pick? I'm curious what she's gonna pick.
I have some ideas about what she might pick. Good. Do you want to know what we chose as our standout track?
Yes. What did you choose?
Michael, do you want to say or do you want me to say?
Oh, I'll say, because we've actually already been talking about it. We actually wanted to play If You See Jordan as our standout track.
Okay, yes, I love it.
It's so good. I know it's really good. I actually think for all the reasons that you stated, I stand by our assertion that it is the standout track.
It was a single when it was released, and I do still love it for exactly what it is. And yeah, I love that you picked it.
Crazy video. Did you watch the video?
I actually did not rewatch. I've seen it. I have not watched it.
It has this character actor who plays the Jordan character, who I'm like, I've seen that guy in a million things. He's like,
isn't the actor supposed to be from an American Pie or something like that?
Maybe, yeah. I never really watched those movies. I was too young. I didn't really watch those movies. But
you didn't miss much.
That was a time in American cinema.
Was this song unanimous between both of you that it had to be the standout?
Michael texted me asking what I thought for standout track, and he said he had a particular affinity for this one. And what was the other one, Michael?
The other
got it on Slack. I'm not sure.
I woke up in a car. I think might have been the other one.
Oh, I woke up in a car, which also that is another one that I'm like, that has that same dark blue quality. Woke up in a car, and it's like very that whole melodic line. It's so familiar to me.
Yeah, I was between that and Hurricane, but ultimately Hurricane won out. But those are so many good tracks.
I think If You See Jordan, also another reason why I thought it was the standout track is kind of what I said before, how it's like almost a standard. It almost has that format, format that a lot of bands were making. They would have a song like this. So Ben Folds has a bunch of songs where it's like that. It's that running piano like dun, 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 and there's like Ben Folds did that a ton. I still think Teenage Dirtbag has a connection here. It's important to have this sort of thing, and people will be bullied forever. So I think that there's a very evergreen message at the core of this one, which is "Fuck you, Jordan."
Yep. I read too that they didn't even change his name. He didn't change his name. That was like the actual name of his high school bully, and it actually happened that, like, I guess Jordan challenged Andrew on the beach or something, and because I did my own like research on that song before coming here, and I thought that was because it had no idea how big it would get, so they just never decided to change the name.
Sounds like Jordan was an asshole, so it sounds like he deserved it. He deserved the infamy. Well, we're gonna play out on that. Michael, did you have anything else before we dip?
No, I'm ready to give this one a listen and send our listeners off into the great beyond. Something. Yes. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks, Alyx. This was awesome.